What up, Hyperchange? Welcome to another episode. Today we're talking about Snapchat. I've covered them extensively on the channel, but now something has fundamentally changed. A couple weeks ago, I actually bought stock in the company, a super small toe in the water position to basically start my investment in Snap. So now I'm a proud Snap shareholder. Stokes. But anyway, wanted to make this episode to sort of explain why I finally decided to jump into the stock, my thoughts on the company, and just sort of at a high level, my thesis for Snapchat, and then also why I'm structuring the position the way I am, why I'm sort of planning on scaling in, and my philosophy there. So let's get right into it. When I'm thinking about a company, the sort of first layer that I analyze it at is what is the market they're attacking? What is the segment of society they are changing to provide value to consumers? And I think where Snapchat lies is this fabric, this layer in between the real and digital world, whatever you want to call it, social media, social networking, Instagram, Facebook. What I think they're really selling at the end of the day is this layer between the real world and the digital world. That's a huge, huge opportunity that I only seeing way more pervasive in society, is us getting way more hooked on our phones, us wanting to communicate as much as possible via our phones digitally, and the companies who basically control that interaction layer between humans digitally are going to be massive businesses. That's why we've seen Facebook explode and be worth hundreds of billions of dollars, pump out tens of billions of earnings, because the attention that the value of that attention when you are that fabric layer between the digital and real world is massive. And so starting with that, super, super high level, I think there's a huge opportunity to build products that allow us to express more of ourselves in the way we communicate online. Limbic resonance. This is a theory that Elon Musk talked about on the Joe Rogan podcast. The real, effectiveness of social networks, it keeps moving towards things more and more limbic resonance. The more of ourselves we can put onto this digital layer and send it, the sort of more powerful that social network is. So you think about Facebook, started with text on the walls, then went to pictures and tagging. Now everything is video. Even Instagram, way more image focused. And then what's the next layer after video? Augmented reality on top of video, which is something that I think Snapchat is leading. Particularly about Snapchat's approach to solving this problem is something that I like a lot. Their focus is on the user, on communication, and on privacy. It's not a social media contest. There's no likes or public views on Snapchat. So you don't sort of have this negative feedback loop that I think is causing a huge amount of problems in society with the Instagram, Facebook, Twitter thing, where you see how many likes you get. It's a popularity contest. It's sort of training your brain to get more notifications, get more likes, get more followers, which is, I think, really unhealthy, something we're going to need to have a debate about, something potentially regulators are going to have to get involved with. I think Snap has taken a long-term approach here to say we're going to focus on privacy, we're going to focus on the user, we're going to focus on making you have fun and communicate with real friends on your platform. Their whole advertising campaign is real friends. And I just really, this connects with me a lot. And I feel like personally, I definitely use Snapchat less than the other social media apps, so guilty of that. But after I use Snapchat, I definitely feel happier and in a better mood, and like I had a positive interaction with this app versus Instagram and Twitter or Facebook, where maybe I have a negative interaction with that social network. And so I think that's key, and Snap's approach to solving this problem, I really, really like. So the next thing is, what is the attention on this platform? Okay, it's one thing to have a great product, but you need to have the attention. It needs to be growing. This is where I was critical of Snapchat. This is why the stock price after the IPO took a huge, huge hit. Instagram copied them extremely successfully with their Stories product, and that led to a decline in user growth, a significant decline. Snapchat was growing rapidly its user base, and that basically screeched to a halt about last year, and that's why the stock plummeted. That's why financials weren't as good as people thought, and that personally, ruined my excitement for the company. As I was like, if they can't keep the attention on their platform, then this entire flywheel, the entire bull thesis, will sort of fall apart. So that's an important thing to keep, to think about when you're investing in these social media companies is if the attention's not there, the business model is going to collapse from the inside out. And I think that's a very real possibility you have to contend with. That's why these networks like Vine can get so big so quickly and then die so quickly as well. So anyway, the point is, we've seen a key turning point. Last quarter, Snapchat reported their biggest net DAU ad since Instagram Stories launched. Over 200 million people using the platform on average every day in the quarter. This was a record DAU. So basically, we've seen that trend tick back up, and we've seen a reversal in the momentum of Snapchat, and now they are growing again. It looks like they have fended off Instagram, really found their niche, and have actually survived and are now have resumed growth. So this is a huge thing that gets me excited about the company. I think people aren't getting into it. I think the general consensus is that Snapchat's dying or it's not popular, but when you look at the numbers, the engagement and users are actually growing, and these 200 million people are spending 30 minutes per day on average on Snapchat. I mean, the amount of attention on this platform is huge. Not to mention the demographic you're hitting with Snapchat. You're hitting people who love their phones, who are addicted to tech, who are like 18 to 34, maybe even a little younger. So I think this is the sweet spot of the demographic of cultural influencers and sort of thought leaders and tastemakers of a generation, which is why, although you may think their spending power is less, I think their influence and their value to advertisers is extremely high. The next thing is Snapchat's innovation in advertising is, I think, a huge overlooked sort of key aspect of their business model. You had the story. The story format is an entirely new advertising format that takes up a whole screen on your phone. So Instagram copied them. Facebook is moving heavily into stories as their new ad product. And they think the potential CPM or the amount they can charge for that, full screen real estate in the middle of a story is going to be extremely high. It's in a very engaging ad product. And so that's just one example of how Snap's business model led to a better advertising product. But their even next layer of that, where I think they're way ahead of Facebook, is even more exciting. And I just think a better product in general. I'm talking about lenses. These are the augmented reality filters that Snapchat creates. And yes, you can create them for fun. There's a million of them that are just for fun, but brands can also sponsor them. You can be like a Taco Bell and throw tacos in your mouth. You can turn into the Starbucks lady. There was one with Chipotle too. So there's all these fun things to do with brands. And as a user, you're interacting with the brand, having fun in this sort of quirky way, yet the brand is reaching out to you. They're creating a connection. I think this is sort of the future of value add advertising. And I think Snapchat is just scratching the surface. Like there was a Gatorade one that sort of went viral. People were dumping the Gatorade on them, like after you win. Like I think they're scratching the surface here of an entirely new type of advertising medium that we've never seen before, that has huge potential, that's way better for brands. So I think there's some really exciting stuff there. Now let's take a dive into the financials and see what's going on under the hood with Snapchat, because these don't look good on the surface, but I think there's a lot of underlying trends here that make me extremely excited about the company. So all that stuff I told you about, users are growing, engagement's still good, everything's moving in the right direction. The financials, which are a very lagging indicator of that, are actually supporting that thesis. And that is why I'm so convinced. And actually, that's what got me over the edge of the stock, is I'm saying, okay, all this traction and improvements in the business is really translating into financial progress as well. So let's take a look at that. So here are Snap's quarterly financials. Difficult to get much of a trend because, frankly, they are losing a lot of money. But this was Q2 2019, $388 million in revenue and $305 million in losses. But if we take out the losses for a second and just look at the top line and the gross profit, you'll see that Snap's business is improving rapidly. The fundamentals, they're seasonally strong in Q4, so that's why you have that bump of $390 million. But you can see the year-over-year growth for Q2, 48% growth year-over-year. I mean, this is a rapidly growing business, and that revenue growth rate's actually accelerating now that user growth is back up. So we have a rapidly growing top line. Even more exciting than that is that gross margin line there, 144% growth, because the gross margins are improving so rapidly. And that's the key part of the thesis I want to get to. We've hit this inflection point in Snap's business where originally it cost them so much to run this complex video AR platform that they weren't even making money serving you ads, which should be an extremely high margin software business. It's one of my main critiques of Snap is, where is the gross margin? Facebook's putting up 70, 80%. So's Twitter. So's every other software company. If you're going to be valued like this at 10 times sales Snapchat, we need to see the gross margins improve fast, and they have totally delivered. So not only are you getting rapid top-line improvements, but you're getting rapid gross margin improvements. And this is the underlying profitability of the firm has been crushing it because of this. So you can see it was 44% in Q2, but seasonally Q4 is even stronger. So I think by Q4 20 of this year, we're looking at well over 50% gross margins for Snapchat, and they're going to continue to go up. The other thing is they've stopped burning through the IPO cash. So if you look at this is from their shareholder deck, you can see their free cash flow has shrunk dramatically. So yes, they are still losing a little bit of money, but way less. They're being extremely prudent with how they manage their cash, and you can see that they've totally stopped burning through it. They still have $1.2 billion left on the bank, only burning about $100 million a quarter and diminishing. So now they have about 3 or 4 years of runway left at the current run rate, which I think is going to improve. So the cash position is extremely strong and secure as well. So now we have this combination of, crushing at fundamentals and, rapidly improving top line, rapidly improving profitability, and no longer the need for cash. And part of the reason you're like, wait, how are they losing so much money, $305 million in operating income, but only $100 million in cash losses? $200 million of that is in stock comp to employees, depreciation and amortization of CapEx. Those are non-cash expenses, but you are paying for them in terms of dilution. So that's why, the share count is going to be increasing for Snapchat as they give employees more options. That's why I think when you're valuing the company, you want to assume a pretty, good, decent growth in the share count. Anyway, before we do that, I just want to give you guys my brief estimates for 2019, and actually shout out to Hypercharts. If you want to get down and dirty with all of this data, go to hypercharts.co/snap. slash Snap. I'm actually going to put out a model of my Snap estimates in another episode on hypercharts. So more on that later. But anyway, back to the charts now. This is what I'm projecting for Snap for 2019. About 1.75 billion in revenue and about 950 million in operating losses. So as you can see, the losses are improving, a little bit, and the top line is accelerating in growth. And that's what really has me excited about this company, is the growth is back, and the revenue is booming, and we're looking at 1.75 billion. So now let's talk about the valuation. With about 1.6 billion shares outstanding, at 17 a share, because I actually bought the shares at 17 a share, so even though they're at 14 now, even cheaper, let's just do it at 17. The market cap is about 27.2 billion. Actually, side note, that 1.6 billion shares, that's more than they have outstanding now, but I assume that, 100 million or so buffer for that future dilution, for another equity raise, for an acquisition, etc. I always think it's nice to leave yourself a buffer when you estimate the shares. So $27.2 billion company, 27.2 billion divided by 1.75 billion in 2019 revenue, 15.5 times price sales. So why would I pay 15.5 times price sales for this company? The gross margins, 45-50%. They're only growing at 48%. What's going on here? The biggest reason is I think the financials are drastically lagging. This is something that I saw with Facebook. When they started clicking and the margins started happening, all of that incremental cash flow went right to the bottom line. We saw Facebook be extremely profitable. We saw the market not really realize this until the numbers hit. When the numbers did hit, the stock soared. The rest is history. It's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. I think Snapchat is actually very similar, attention to these networks like Twitter and Facebook. Think about it, 203 million people checking it every day. That's already bigger than Twitter, yet they're valued at about, 2/3 of the price. And so I think and they're growing much faster. So I think the attention on Snapchat is probably worth 40 or 50 billion if it was a mature advertising business, but it's not. So that's why the market doesn't appreciate it yet. But then I think if you assume that Snapchat keeps growing, if they have another product innovation that hits, if they continue to steal momentum away from Instagram, if the debate goes more onto privacy and fun than likes and sort of Zuckerberg's empire, I think Snap is the beneficiary of all of this. And so I think we're going to see, 48% revenue growth is great. I think they can continue at that level for several years. All the multiples are going to compress rapidly. All of the incremental profits are going to go right to the bottom line. We're going to realize this is an extremely profitable business on a revenue basis. And so I'll get more into this in my financial modeling episode and actually show you guys the numbers I'm expecting. But the point is I think Snap is sort of at this inflection point where they figured it out, the business model, the advertising model is working, and we're going to see the financials start flowing in the next couple quarters as long as the user growth is there. The last sort of high level thing I want to leave you with is augmented reality is huge. It is the future. I was playing around with my iPhone with animojis, which are so fun, with snap filters, sending them to my friends. Like, I think we are on the cusp of getting to sort of this next level of augmented reality, and I think companies like Snap, who are bringing out product like the spectacles, which sort of have this 3D new thing, the augmented reality glasses, which I am personally extremely excited to get myself as a creator, because it means if I want to make a video getting in a Model 3, I don't have to use my hands. I can just tap, record. If I'm at the pickup truck event and I want to record the event for you guys, I can just tap on my spectacles. It's a totally new, amazing way to create and experience content. And so Snapchat's the only company, they're only 20 billion, Facebook's 500 billion, but who's building a camera for creators? Who's building a product for creators to help them, create content? Who's actually on that side of the platform instead of Facebook, where I feel like it's all consuming content. It's all about making money from your attention, not empowering you to create. And I think that this sort of ideological difference is very subtle, but very, very different and important. And I think as this plays out, I think that the tide, the public sentiment is all going to go to Snap. If that results in more users coming back to the platform, I think the story takes care of itself. The last part of the episode here, why only buy 9 shares? So this is like a fraction of my total portfolio, like a super tiny amount, mainly actually because I only had 150 whatever bucks in my public app. So this was all I had in cash to buy it. But the reason why ideologically I like to invest like this is because I call it the toe in the water position. When I'm investing for super long term, years and years, I've been studying Snapchat for years now, using it. I know the company extremely well, listen to all their conference calls, read all their financial reports. And so now I felt like the momentum was turning, but I still want to do DD. I still want to learn. I'm not totally convinced. I think the valuation is really high. I think Facebook could still come in and crush them. I think they haven't really proved the model yet. Spectacles could be awesome or they could be a flop. So Evan Spiegel is an amazing visionary and leader and CEO, and he's a huge reason I'm fascinated and invested in this company. But he's also, has a weird share structure where he owns the majority of the company. My shares don't really have voting power. So like that's a question that actually, if I do want to get Evan Spiegel on a hyper chat and on Hyperchange. So Snap, if you're watching this, I think we can make that happen. But that would be one of my biggest questions: is why should I feel comfortable owning stock with no voting power? I don't really like that. And so I'm super excited about Snap. I think there's huge potential. I think they're building a better future for social, for that digital layer between us and the internet that I want to live in. I think there's 10 to 20x potential in the equity if they really nail it over the next 5 to 10 years. And so I think it all makes sense, but I'm not convinced. And I want to follow the progress. This is a real-time case study. I want to really see if they keep improving the next couple quarters. And let's say now the stock's at 14. Let's say they report awesome numbers in Q3 and the stock still stays around here. I'm probably going to start adding to my position because the probability of certainty of my thesis will have gone up. So I just think this is how I like to invest. Take my time, not rush into anything at one price. When I have money on the line, I am listening to that conference call with renewed attention. There's just something about being invested, being a shareholder, that makes you care more, that makes you do better research. And so that's sort of the start of my process of how I get involved with companies. Toe in the water position. I like it. I'll buy a much bigger chunk, and then I'll keep buying it if I want to build, a real position. But anyway, that's my wrap up of a Snapchat, my bull thesis, why I started my position, how I started it. I hope it wasn't too long and boring. Would love to know what you guys think of this type of content and just generally what you think of Snap. Am I crazy? Or do you think this really has a chance? Also, last thing I forgot to mention, TikTok, total wildcard threat. Just another example of how a wrench could get thrown in this story. Anyway, this is Hyperchange. Huge shout out to our Patreon supporters, producers, fun in the channel. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.